episode number 154 of the LSR podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all of the gaming industry. And with me, I have Adam Candy. I have Brad Allen. You can follow them on the Twitter machine for free, and you should smash the button for at Brad Allen NFL, at Adam Candy, 2 E's, no Y. And if you hate yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. If you're listening to the audio version, please subscribe, rate, review, appreciate that. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hello, and hit the subscribe button down below. We really do appreciate that. As always, we will end this thing with our rapid fire state updates. We'll talk some delays in Colorado for some launches, what we're going to do with Fanatics, different things going on with Penn. But let's kick things off here, Brad, with California, because listen, this is going to be the state here outside of Texas and Florida that we spend an incredible amount of time on here on this podcast until we get something going in that state. So what is the latest here from California?
Well, it's kind of officially online sports betting will be on the ballot. California Secretary of State said last night, it had verified a sufficient amount of the 1.6 million signatures that were backing online sports betting. It had verified there were at least 1.1 million real ones. So that will now be on the ballot in November, where it will go up against the retail betting measure backed by the tribes. So it basically means, it's open season now. The war is starting, and it's already kicking off. Actually, one of the tribal backed groups, they sent out a press release literally about 2 hours ago saying they've caught Jason Robbins talking about how they were setting the tax rate in California to benefit themselves rather than the state. And it wasn't about homelessness, as the measure might suggest. It's called, California fighting homelessness or something. It's all about these online sports betting companies sort of taking money out of California and enriching themselves rather than actually helping the state. And I think this is just a flavor of what's to come. It's going to be a lot of money spent, $100 million from at least from each side in the battle for legal California sports betting.
So, Adam, as we take a look at what is the potential over there in California, again, we have no idea how this will all end up and what the final versions of all these look like and whatnot. But what is better for the consumer?
Well, I think we've seen over time that the consumer prefers convenience, right? The U.S. consumer has made it very clear in any state that offers mobile sports betting that they prefer mobile sports betting. We've seen upwards of 90% adoption in most states that have the option for both mobile and for retail. Now, to be clear and to be fair, the tribal option does not completely eliminate retail, but it delays it a minimum of 5 years, essentially to give the tribes a study period to see what they think the effect would be on their brick and mortar businesses. It also does something else, which is delay and potentially fight off entirely the adoption of online casino in California, which is, of course, one of the major fears of the tribes. It's not so much about sports betting being something that is cannibalizing brick and mortar, but it certainly would be a fear that, as we've seen in many states, that the operators who are behind this initiative have done, they will go for iCasino eventually because it is the more profitable of the verticals that they're able to deliver through the mobile devices. So tribes are certainly concerned about that and how that would eat into their brick and mortar businesses. So to answer your question more directly, Matt, I think consumers themselves have said that they want the ability to have mobile, but it's also going to be quite the fight to get there in California.
And Brad, I don't think I'm being too presumptuous here, but you can certainly correct me. And I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth. So this is just strictly, a question for opinion here. But also the 5 years gives the tribes a chance to catch up, right? I mean, certainly they could partner with someone who already has technology and all the different things like that from a mobile standpoint. But, maybe they want to own the whole thing. Maybe they don't want to, partner and they want to keep every single bit of the revenue and don't want to have to split off with different things like that. So it also kind of gives them a chance to catch up to all these other companies, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure you can catch up in 5 years. I don't think any tribe or any entity can pick up sports betting and try and build something from scratch and compete with FanDuel, say, in 5 years. I don't think I just don't think it's really possible. And I think one of the big contentions that the tribes have is the operators would come in and they're going, look, you can partner with us, you can still do retail, everyone's going to make a lot of money. But there's 7 operators backing this online initiative. And if you partner with FanDuel, great, you're probably going to make a lot of money. But there's 100 plus California tribes. And I think that's one of the contentions, is that a lot of people are going to be left out in the cold. And yeah, there is some money dished out to people who don't have partners, but it's going to be peanuts essentially. So that's one of the reasons the tribes are fighting this, because there's going to be real winners and losers. There's going to be 7 winners, I guess, and 100 plus losers, and that's one of the issues.
And Adam, I mean, look, you and I have been to California, hundreds of times here, and you look around and there are certainly the haves and the have-nots of the tribes as well, right? I mean, like, you can certainly tell the differences in the various, depending on where you go, the different casinos that are already established over there. There are everything from the super nice that you look like maybe if you could just pick it up and drop it in Vegas that it might be able to survive, and to the other ones where it's like, oh, I feel, almost like I need a tetanus shot after I leave this. So, I mean, there's certainly the haves and the have-nots over there as well.
And I think you could say that about tribal gaming in California and just about anywhere where there are tribal facilities that are more advanced than others, right? There are some that have been able to invest and reinvest over time. And, that's something that I think that Brad said that is worth keeping in mind, that there's not uniformity among tribes in California or anywhere else for that matter. There are some tribes who at one point were talking about putting up their own online initiative that ultimately isn't going to go anywhere. We're going to end up with 2 ballot initiatives come fall. And I think it's vital to keep in mind that what Brad said about not being able to pick it up in 5 years and get something started, that is a reminder of what the market opportunity really is in California. And I think we cannot forget what it means to these companies that are publicly listed, to these companies that might potentially be, I'm not going to say running cash poor, but certainly watching dollars a lot more than they were. If ever there were a time to throw the last of your chips on the table and hope that this is the one that you can make happen, this is the one you've got to make happen. And for whether it's DraftKings, whether it's Fanatics who's trying to get into the market, whoever it is, this opportunity cannot be missed, because, to be very honest, Florida was a huge miss for the online betting community. The fact that they failed to get that initiative qualified for the ballot was malpractice on a lot of levels. It seems that they've learned some lessons from that. They got this qualified in California, and now that $100 million that they've initially pledged in terms of advertising and marketing, I would consider that just the very first chip in what's going to be many put on the table by the sportsbooks.
And Brad, finally here before we move on, I mean, who do you feel has the leg up here? I mean, we know how much power that the tribes do have in the state, but we also do have, in DraftKings and FanDuel and Fanatics, whatever, you got massive email lists and massive marketing materials that you're able to get out to your potential customers very, very easily and not cost you a ton of money, even from that aspect, to do that. And further, you are reaching people who are already prone to at least have some sort of interest in sports, right? I mean, yes, there's a gambling list amongst the tribes and things like that, but I mean, just because a guy is a blackjack player or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a sports bettor, as to where we certainly know if you're playing DFS, the correlation between switching over to sports betting is very highly likely. So who do you think actually has the leg up in this?
I asked Adam this question earlier. I asked him specifically odds for the online measure passing, and I believe he made the no a slight favourite. I think yes was plus 150. And to be honest, it was more optimistic than I was, because I've spoken to John Holden, who obviously follows this stuff well and writes for us, and he said words to the effect of, if you have 2 measures on the same topic, you have none, because the money sort of cancels it out. They go at each other. There's a lot of negative campaign spending. And that was something I believe the tribes have said. They said, when there's been a campaign this big with 100 million and trying to push for a no vote on something, they said it's never, ever failed. They've never, nothing's ever succeeded in the face of that kind of opposition. So that would be my default here, that they're going to cancel each other out. And it's probably not going to get done because, as you say, the tribes do wield a lot of power, and they'd much rather have nothing at all happen, keep the status quo. I suspect that's the most likely outcome.
They said exactly that at the Tribal Gaming Convention back in April in Anaheim. They said, if nothing passes, we're very happy with that. We are absolutely fine with nothing ultimately getting through. So, expect this to be bloody on both sides.
So they kind of had two avenues to air quote winning, as opposed to the other side only having one, because either theirs gets through or nothing gets through, and whatever. Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. All right, let's head clear across the country here and go over to New York, and let's talk a little bit about their revenue and a pretty eye-popping statistic from that revenue.
We get weekly revenue numbers from New York, and they're broken out by operator. And we remember very early in this game, Caesars came out of the gate with its hair on fire, its toga on fire, it's everything on fire, $3,000 plus in terms of their offer. And of course, they were atop the revenue numbers at the beginning. And we've seen this level out the way we have in most other states, where FanDuel slowly but surely creeps its way into a market lead. Now, there's a difference between a market lead and what we saw last week in New York. 89% revenue share for FanDuel in New York last week. That is the kind of number we have not seen anywhere else in the country. Even when we talk about this operator or that operator having a lead in a place, 89% of revenue is unbelievable for one operator. And that's not just a matter of, well, there were big losses at this one or whatever. We do have some correlation there potentially to the NBA finals. We were spitballing on maybe some of those big free bets that Caesars rolled out there at Super Bowl time might have been put onto NBA futures that eventually came home. There could be some accounting to be made for there, but what would that take it from? 89 to 85, 89 to 83, we'd still be sitting here talking about how dominant one operator was in the New York market. And the size of that New York market just goes to drive home what an amazing number that is.
Brad, we look at we see something like that. And I mean, look, that a couple of the big boys are not going to pull out for sure, because it's just, you have to be in New York, it's a status thing or whatever. But could we get to a point, in your opinion, where the juice isn't worth the squeeze for some of these other players? And certainly it's less appealing for anyone else to want to try and join into the party here, if one, it's so incredibly top heavy, and two, with the structure that we know about is in New York as it is.
Yeah. So just quickly to finish off Adam's point, though they still had a record at share of handle as well. That was up to 48% FanDuel. So yeah, perhaps they ran hot, perhaps they boosted like Nets or the Knicks for the NBA championship or something, and they just scooped all those bets. I don't know if that was the case, but they the sort of more stable metric of handle, they were increasing that as well. And I think you are already seeing operators give in a bit. We've seen BetMGM go, well, we're not going to spend because it's not worth it for us. We've seen Caesars say we're not going to spend either. We've just seen Bally's launch. I suspect, or say they're going to launch, I suspect they're not going to put too much money behind it either. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if FanDuel just kept extending the lead. And I was chatting to someone today about the product. Somebody was a PointsBet shareholder, and he said, it's a great product. They come top 3 on sort of product testing from Eilers and Krychek. But he said that the FanDuel app is just so much better than everything else, just for tracking same game parlays, the live updates. And obviously they've got the money to spend, they've got the product, and they've got an experienced online gambling team. So I just don't see any reason why this lead they wouldn't just keep pressing this lead.
Adam, we talked about this like several months ago when we were just talking about apps and functionality and different things like that, to where there isn't, there is differences, but there isn't like an incredible difference amongst kind of the top 3 or 4 when it comes to functionality and offerings and all this stuff like that. I am still stuck on this whole thing that the lighter app in FanDuel might actually be a thing. I honestly believe this. Like, I think that some people might just like the lighter aesthetics than going in and having the dark background in some of these apps. I would not be surprised if we're going, Eilers and Krychek will probably do some sort of study on this or whatever, but it would not surprise me, because it is, you played with them too, because you've frequent trips up to Colorado and stuff like that. I mean, the difference between FanDuel and DraftKings and PointsBet, like when you're talking about the apps and the functionality and what they offer and do and stuff, it's like, it's really kind of negligible.
I might be the worst possible test market for your theory, Matt, because I am team dark mode from here to forever. It doesn't matter whether it's mobile, desktop, anywhere. I am basically goth when it comes to apps. I want everything to be as dark as possible. But I get what you're saying in terms of the branding, and I'll back it up with with my experience with playing with some of those apps in Colorado. FanDuel is very smooth. It's very easy to use. Is it 25 or 30% better than another app? No, it's not,
Right.
but it is noticeably. I mean, there are some other apps that I've played with, and DraftKings, Caesars, MGM, that are perfectly fine. There's nothing in them that is a friction point that I would be like, oh God, I hate dealing with that. But FanDuel really is a seamless experience.
Yeah. And Brad, just to put a bow on this, I think after we shift from, and we started to see a little bit of this, we talked about this on the podcast last week, of just even the branding and advertising has shifted a little bit more from, bonuses this, bonuses that, to, oh, you get quick payouts if you do this and whatever, and like less about, the other stuff. But I imagine once the ramp down of the land grab for customer acquisition, that the majority of the money is going to be put into product, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, yes, someone who's on top and they have garnered all these people and so many people become loyal and et cetera, et cetera. But, if someone really does come through with some sort of breakthrough technology, some sort of something that really does differentiate themselves, because as we said, like right now, is there a difference? Yes, but it's negligible. That they probably could break through here. So I imagine like the next big wave here will be incredible product innovation.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of the operators have said, is that they've spent all their resources, all their technology, all their basically everything just launching in new states. They've gotten to 30 so far, or whatever it is. And it's, as you say, it is slowing down now. So they are going to have a lot of engineers who can start looking at how can we speed up same game in-play parlays or whatever. As do I think there's going to be some sort of breakthrough tech revolution? I'm not sure. I feel like what we see in tech generally is that it's just sort of tiny iterations of just making it really, really easy. I think that's that's the reason Bet365 is so good, in my opinion, is that it's just slick and it's just pleasant to use, and there's no friction. I think rather than something to reinvent the betting experience, in a way, the betting experience is the sport, right? You just want a really quick, frictionless way to put the bet on, and then you just enjoy the game. So yes, more money into product, but I think that'll be more about just making it as slick and easy as possible, rather than something groundbreaking, perhaps.
Yeah. And Adam, I also believe that there's also a chance that I fly too close to the sun in this, right? That all of us do, right? That maybe like we're so wrapped up in like, oh man, if the product was great, that would certainly make me want to use app X, Y, or Z more and all this. But like, maybe a lot of people just don't care, right? I mean, maybe we're just like fly a little bit too close to the sun because we are, so involved with this on a daily basis, where maybe it's not that big a deal to a lot of people.
Well, let me ask you a question, and this is going to be meant to prove a point here. Who's the celebrity spokesperson for FanDuel? Right. Exactly.
Right. Pat McAfee?
We don't know. It's not like talking about BetMGM and Jamie Foxx, right? Like, they've been out there pushing on product for a long time. This is what we've been hearing from them. This is what we've been seeing from them. And so I'll point to something we just got from them last week. And we have a story coming out this week on Legal Sports Report talking about what is the value of retail in today's environment, right? What is the value in still having retail? And FanDuel actually just put out an innovation in retail that I thought was very smart in terms of eliminating one friction point in getting people to bet retail. They were talking about how if you bet at their retail outlet, such as at Footprint Center in Arizona, where the Suns play, if you have a physical ticket, they have created a way for you to scan a winning ticket with your phone and get your winnings into the app in your phone directly without having to cash the ticket at the retail outlet, which is intensely smart. That is the sort of simple thing that is going to make people more apt to be putting a bet down in a retail environment than they would be otherwise.
That is a super, super great point as well. And then just to Brad's point as well, it's like, the technology, getting all the implementation of the stuff and everything like that, it's like, it's easier said than done. Adam, you and I were at G2E 3 years ago when we saw, that breakthrough golf product and the breakthrough UFC product and how it was going to make the in-game UFC betting like the most revolutionary thing ever and the in-game golf betting the most revolutionary thing ever. And wait till this hits all the sports books and things like that. And here we are, heading towards the football season of 2022, and we don't have any of that.
Accurate information, sir. A lot easier said than done.
Yeah. On that note, actually, I was at the conference in London. I think it was SBC, something like that. Betting on Sports, it was, and they were talking about what will the next product innovation be, and the big focus for Flutter, obviously the owner of FanDuel, was in-play bet builders, same game parlays, and keeping the cash out live for as long as possible. Basically, trying to keep 100% uptime for cash out. So again, it's kind of what we're talking about. It's just making the product more easy and more available the entire time.
Brad, we'll head to Colorado. We just mentioned Colorado here, and they have an incredible amount of operators that are live up there for the people to choose from. And there was going to be another one enter the fray here, but it looks like we're going to have to wait just a tad.
Yes, so Bet365 was scheduled for a Q2 launch in Colorado, which would have been its second state, but that's been pushed back. So Century Casinos, Bet365's licensing partner in the state, they said it's now likely to be September the 1st, which of course is about 7 days before the NFL regular season kicks off, which you would have said is not an ideal time to be sort of just going live and testing. For one, you lose a good month of customer acquisition in the build up there. And then, you don't get any sort of beta testing time. You don't get any time to fine tune the product, make sure your servers are running smoothly before you get absolutely walloped on Thursday Night Football with 1 million bets. But as I say, Bet365 and the US, they have been very slow. I don't necessarily know why. Whenever I talk to them, it's about biding their time and a gradual rollout. But to still be waiting for the second state in the US is quite interesting. Sort of 4 years after Passport was repealed, 3 years.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Adam, one of the things about 365, we talk about, is there any differentiator between any of these? Can there be a differentiator between any of these things? Like, there are offerings inside the Bet365, because I just mess around inside the Bet365 app that's available over in Jersey, and you can find different things that they do offer that really aren't available in other places. I mean, for one, we don't have each way betting for golf in the States anywhere except for Bet365 in Jersey, right? And so there is stuff inside that app that does and possibly could differentiate themselves for at least a more savvy bettor anyway, right? So I don't think when we say, okay, yes, Colorado market, is it saturated? Is it too saturated? I don't, whatever, we can debate that another time. But I do think that there is a place for 365 to kind of step in and say, hey, look, by the way, yeah, cool, you've got all this stuff, but look what we have that they don't.
Absolutely. And to Brad's point, I mean, this is a proven product. We don't need to have any sort of proof of concept put out there about whether 365 can run a successful sports betting app. It's been proven. Now, can it be effectuated the same way, in the US is probably a bit of a question, but not as much as it would be with brand new technology that we would be seeing roll out somewhere. So, to Brad's point, he talks about how 4 years from PASPA, we still see 365 in one state. We have an article up at LSR that Brad did right now about ESPN still kind of biding its time. And so, the longer the two move or don't move in parallel, the more we're going to end up talking about the two of them at the same time, potentially together.
One of the, maybe sleeping giants, we don't know, but we think that there's at least some potential there for sure, is Fanatics. And we've mentioned them a ton of times here on the podcast. We know for sure that there is at least two things they have going for them. One, they have a massive customer base that's already built in that they will be able to market to. And two, a lot of those customers are sports fans and people who deal with sports. And so you would think that there would at least be some sort of likely way to convert those people over. Adam, the thing is we kept asking, well, what product are you going to use? How are you going to launch when you finally get going with all of that? And maybe some of those questions have started to be answered.
Matt, the third thing that Fanatics has going for it is that no matter which god you pray to, it has people richer than all of them involved. Whether we're talking about Michael Rubin, whether we're talking about Matt King, there's a lot of money behind Fanatics. And what's actually really interesting in what we've seen in the news recently was that Michael Rubin had to sell his stake in the Philadelphia 76ers from the Harris Blitzer Entertainment Group in order to get through the licensing phase of all of this, because we just saw Fanatics get its first stage licensing taken care of in Maryland. And we also saw a story reported by the Gannett family of papers that there's some negotiation going on with Tipico and Gannett, that there might be a bit of an impasse there, but certainly seems like a pure play for licenses there for Fanatics, because as Brad has reported on, if Fanatics does ultimately end up successful in California, they're going to need to get licensed up in a number of states really quickly in order to take advantage of the California opportunity, because they have to be licensed in 10 states in order for that to become a possibility. So, we see them finally starting to make some moves toward licensure, potentially toward an acquisition. And I think Brad can speak to this as well, because he and I have had some discussions behind the scenes about the fact that they seem to have brought on some talented people and have a pretty good idea of where they're headed, at least behind the scenes.
Yeah, Brad, what is your feeling towards Fanatics in general, and what do you think that the kind of the upside is here?
Well, I mean, the upside is, I think, that they have smart people and that they are clearly kicking the tires on seemingly every single option that they could possibly take advantage of in the US right now. I mean, we've reported on they potentially had a deal in place for technology from Amelco. They've been linked with PointsBet, Betson, Bet Rivers, now Tipico. And I do believe they have been in the room discussing it with every single one of those companies. And Matt King obviously has a reputation for being a kind of savvy deal maker, and it seems he wants the very, very best terms for whatever they eventually settle on. And I suppose that's why you would give them a chance to do well in the long run, because they've got smart people in charge, and they are clearly, whatever they eventually settle on, it's going to be quite well stress tested, and it's going to be the absolute best option at a good price, you would have thought.
And Adam, you're positive that he's sold the stake in the Sixers because of this and not because of the James Harden situation and the contract and all that. You're positive of this?
Listen, I'm a normal person. Okay. I'm not someone who's making things different every day. I just understand it as much as a normal person can. So whatever the maneuverings are in the NBA are probably above and beyond my head.
All right, so Brad, let's hit on Penn here, and they seem to they seem to have a transition in front of them.
Yeah, just a small story here. Or Penn Interactive, I think head of Penn Interactive is his correct title, John Kaplowitz, who's basically been there since that division was created at Penn in 2019. He has left the business after about 4 years, oversaw the growth of the company from 40 to 500 staff. And obviously Penn Interactive manages the Barstool Sportsbook, manages some online casino, some social casino. And Kaplowitz is being replaced there by Benji Levy, obviously also part of Penn now following that acquisition last year. And it's just interesting timing, I think, given what lies ahead for Penn Interactive, specifically technology-wise. So first of all, later this year, they're going to migrate TheScore bet onto its own trading engine, which is the first time anything is going onto that trading engine. So that's a decent sized project, but that's basically Ontario. That's the product in Ontario moving over, and then the sort of really big project happens next year when they move the Barstool Sportsbook in 13 states or so. They're going to move it off of Canby and off of White Hat, which are its current providers, and they're going to move that all the way over onto the Score technology platform, back-end, trading engine, the lot. And that is not a small job. We've seen William Hill do that, 10 states onto their own technology. That took about 18 months. We've seen Parks do this in Pennsylvania. It took them about 12 months to do it. And so, I heard from people, from tech-savvy people, going, this is a huge job upcoming. And now the head of the business has left, the one with real sort of digital expertise, Kaplowitz, I would say he's very well respected. And obviously I spoke to John for the story, and he said it was, his son is born this week, I think his second son, and he wants to spend more time with the family. So maybe that's just the simple explanation. I did ask him whether it was a Tom Brady spend time with the family, and whether he'll be back. Yeah. He'll be back in 2 months when he realizes, he actually loves his job. So yeah, that's the story in a nutshell. It's just a high-profile departure at Penn at an interesting time.
Definitely an interesting time for that company as they have a bunch of stuff going on there. Major transitions coming up. Adam, take us home here with our quick state updates.
Yeah, we'll just give one final glance over at North Carolina and a quick SMH. The end of the session is coming up on Thursday, and it appears it is dead once and for all. There was at least a sliver of hope after last week's failed vote that something might come back around again, but it appears that they're done for the year in terms of mobile. In Massachusetts, no real new news to report on the negotiations going on between the House and the Senate. A good article, though, up at Legal Sports Report right now by Matthew Waters, looking at the fact that Massachusetts residents are not waiting for Massachusetts legal sports betting to come around to place legal sports bets. They have options across basically every border of that state. And a really interesting number, I thought, was that throughout the NBA postseason, DraftKings confirmed to Matt that 35% of the wagers made on the Celtics in New Hampshire were made by people from Massachusetts. So the pent-up demand is not only there, it's leaking out at the moment. And likely it comes back if and when Massachusetts passes something. But keep in mind that right now, Massachusetts is talking about a hugely restrictive environment that would have no college betting, that might limit the amount of advertising. So it's not necessarily a slam dunk that everything comes back home to Massachusetts if they get something done.
Guys, as always, every single thing that we talk about here on the podcast, you can find over at LegalSportsReport.com. So head over there, take in Adam and his team and Brad and everybody's words that they are putting together. If you're listening to us on the audio side of things, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, whatever it might be, please go in, subscribe, rate, and review. We do appreciate that. On the video version, hit that little subscribe button down below. If you want to follow Brad on the Twitter machine at Brad Allen NFL, you want to follow Adam at Adam Candy, 2 E's, no Y. For Brad, for Adam, talk to you guys next week.